All right, Deb, we are live now.
Okay.
And yes, you've pressed the recording button already. Yeah.
All right.
So how is it going there with COVID situation,
With COVID, well,
right?
yeah, I think it's hard to know. It's all over the place. I don't see a lot around where I am, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit isolated. I've been out living my life, and I don't know anybody who had COVID in any severe way. I had it, my husband had it. We had fairly
Mm-hmm.
mild cases of it. So how about where you are?
I'm in India. The situation is pretty bad here,
Yeah.
and we don't have vaccinations here, and we don't have oxygen cylinders as well. So it's bad.
Joe, my understanding is that are we live? Are we actually live?
We've gone live, yeah, already.
Okay. Well, I won't talk about that then on live, but it's interesting. My understanding is that recent outbreak started in Mumbai. Is that right?
Right, exactly.
And that there is another area nearby there that was
Delhi,
okay.
the capital, and Mumbai.
Yes, and then there was a small region that was doing better, but they were treating with. Have you been treating with ivermectin there?
No, it's remdesivir.
Remdesivir, yeah. I think
So
there's.
we don't have that as well. We have shortage of that.
Hmm, okay, that's interesting how it's working.
Hope we get through.
I hope that things get better soon, very soon. Here comes Janice. Hello, Janice. Welcome. Hi, Janet. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can, Janice. Yep.
Great.
Hello.
Hello. Is that who said that? Was that Janet or Patricia said that?
Janet.
Janet, welcome.
Good morning. This is Patricia.
Hi, Patricia. Good morning. Good morning. Is it morning where you are? Is it?
It's morning.
Oh, okay. It just struck noon here in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Hello, Alethea. Welcome back. Ooh, that's a nice ocean scene. Is that an ocean scene there, Janet?
It's a lake
It's a lake.
in Michigan.
In Michigan. Okay. Yeah, Michigan's lakes look like oceans, don't they? Sometimes. Is that Lake Michigan?
Nope, it's an inland lake.
Okay. Hey, Nelda, welcome back.
Hi.
Nelda, I would like to talk with you sometime. You have a few moments after the session. If you don't, maybe another time, but I'd like to bounce an idea off of you.
Okay, sure.
Great. I'm reading your text there. This is about the lion. The lioness in your picture. I'm reading the text there. Hi, Garnetta.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Welcome to all of you. Is there anyone here who's brand new? Anyone brand new to my classes? Not
Yeah,
this one in particular.
I am Janice. I am brand
Yeah.
new.
Okay, well, I want to give you a special welcome
Thank
that
you.
joining here today. I'm really happy that you're here. And I have a number of people who come back a lot for classes, as you can probably tell, and we have a good time when we're here. I think it's a nice combination of give and take here, and some good social time, good learning time together.
Mhm.
So welcome.
Thank
Hi,
you.
hi, Joanne.
I learned how to do virtual backgrounds. So that's,
Is that what, did you take the class, Nelda?
yes, I did. My computer won't allow it, so I had to get the green sheet. I got it at Amazon, and then my husband built through the pipes, the skinny white pipes.
Yes, like the kind of conduit or something. Yeah.
He made the frame for it. So yeah.
Crafty, very nice. It looks good. Now, when you lean forward, your top becomes brown. Did you notice that?
My what?
Your top,
Oh, I know.
it changes colors. That's interesting. Hey, there's Janet. Hey, Janet. Okay, well, let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. We're going to talk about heart healthy cooking today. And I have a lot of information here, some of which is recipes and some of which is background information. So we'll see what you're interested in. It's very important to me to understand what it is that you would like to get out of this class. So before I get ahead of myself, let me just introduce myself to those of you who may not have come to any of my classes before. My name's Deb, and I'm your guide, and I'm over here in York, Pennsylvania. I say over here because I'm assuming everybody is to the west of me, but maybe that is not necessarily the case. So I'm in Pennsylvania, and my background is in business. So I was a training and organizational development person. My background is in that. And so I spent a lot of time doing that kind of work in front of classes and so on. But this is so much more fun. I have to admit, it's fun to come and talk about cooking. And I enjoy the excitement that happens and the dialogue that happens in these classes. I'm an organic gardener, and I have kind of a penchant for eating healthy. I'm on this long journey for that. That doesn't mean I do it all the time. So I'm no purist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do try to bring more healthful practices into my world. And I hope that I can share and introduce some of those things to you as we go along. So I don't want to be the food police. I do think about that sometimes when I get off of a class and I think, oh my gosh, did I say things that, I don't want to be a food police. I'm just bringing you ideas. And likewise, you bring ideas all the time. And we're finding that more and more, especially as you all feel more comfortable participating. So we do learn from each other in all kinds of ways. Ideally, if you can be on camera, that would be awesome. I know sometimes that's not possible. We don't really care if you're having a bad hair day, but we also understand if you don't want to come on because of that and other reasons. So just know that you are invited to be on camera. The more you participate, the better. You can unmute yourself at any time to share or ask questions. You can also use the chat box. Joe is here with us today. He's our technical support person. Joe, do you want to come on and say hello?
Hello, everyone, and I hope everybody knows where the chat section is. I'll be there to help out.
Yep, he'll be there checking the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, he's going to make sure I don't miss those because sometimes I get on a roll. We are going to be recording the class, as most of you probably know, and you can request that at help@getsetup.io after the class. And we are live streaming today. So you know that little TV button on the side when you are on our website? Have you seen that little TV screen button? You can click on that and you can watch things that are happening by live stream if you don't want to show up in a class. Of course, I have a preference for having you here in class, so I love it when you show up. But I want to say hi to those of you who are joining by live stream and invite you to come and join the conversation because we really get into some good conversation along the way. I want to just say that as we always do, we give a little financial disclaimer here. Nothing that I talk about or share with you is anything that is tied up in a financial relationship with Get Set Up or with me at all. So Need you to know that. So these are the things that I wanted to talk about today. Some food-related factors for heart disease, some tips for a heart healthy diet, an overview of in general, the power foods that are very good for us to be eating to keep our heart healthy. And also, not coincidentally, I think these are also what I would consider anti-inflammatory foods. Because what we know is that at the basis of a lot of core diseases that we have, like heart disease and diabetes and so on, and arthritis, is an overall inflammation in our body. So we're looking to reduce inflammation. And these power foods can go a long way in doing that. And lastly, I have some meal and recipe ideas. Oftentimes, because we get kind of caught up in the other aspects of this agenda, we don't get real far into the meal and recipes, or we skim over those and then I pass them along in the email afterward. So I guess you can help guide me on that. I'm interested to know, why did you come today and what is most important to you? And I will adjust accordingly. What takeaways did you want from today's session? Anybody want to share? Or if you just wanted to see what was going on today and what I had in mind, that's fine too. You can just give me a thumbs up on that, or otherwise let me know what you'd like to really know.
I want to learn as much about power foods as possible so that I can have my heart healthy.
Okay. What are those power foods? Yeah. Sometimes recipes are great to have and they're good for creativity, but if you know the foundation of what those power foods are, you can come up with a lot on your own as well. So starting there is good, and then we build on that as we go. Maybe we'll have more meal planning. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, kind of find out what you know or what you think about. What are the food related things that you feel are related or leading to heart disease? What things in your life or just in general do you see that are a problem that can lead to heart disease?
Stress.
Can you say that again?
Stress.
I'm missing, for some reason, sometimes I just don't hear very well.
Stress.
Can somebody help me? Somebody help tell me what that was. I'm just
I
not
think
hearing.
she's saying dust.
Oh, dust. Okay, dust is a problem. Is that right?
I said stress.
Oh, stress. Okay. I don't know why, but sometimes through the microphone, it just doesn't come clearly enough. Thank you. I'm embarrassed that I had to ask umpteen times.
Sorry, Janet.
Stress.
Animal fats.
Yeah,
Animal-
I'm from Mississippi, good old Southern cooking.
Oh, boy, yes. Wow. Yep. Deep fried everything.
Right. I do try not to, but I love it. But
It's hard, that's what we're raised on. That's what we love. I know it takes a while to get over that. Yep.
I'm interested in the basic foods so that I can just build on those and go from there.
Okay. Well, very quickly, so we can do that, I'm going to just go through these factors that I see that leads to heart disease. These are the things that overtax our heart or create inflammation in our bodies. One is being overweight. So how many of you are familiar with the term BMI or body mass index?
yes.
Okay, if you're familiar with that, you know that it's a measure of how your weight fits with your height. And if you are within 18.5 to 25, you are within the normal range. If I am over 30, I would be considered in the obese category. So that requires a little bit of a formula. It's pounds divided by inches squared, but don't write that down because I'm going to send you a handy dandy BMI calculator. If you don't regularly keep track of your BMI and you want to check in on it a little bit, the little calculator that will be a link in the email I send you will allow you to put your height and your weight in, and you will get your BMI along with an indicator of where you stand on that scale. So keeping track of that weight is so important. So that makes, when we're overweight, it just makes our heart work harder. That just makes sense. And then too much sodium in our diets can lead to high blood pressure because the mechanism there is we retain water, and that water puts pressure on our blood vessels. So sodium helps us retain water. We don't want to retain water. Diets high in sugar are also a problem. They can increase inflammation. They can cause us to have higher triglycerides, which are actually a form of fat. And so we need to watch our triglycerides. Does your doctor ever say to you that, hey, your triglycerides are a little high? Has anybody ever had that? Along with the cholesterol, anybody? Okay. So that can lead to diabetes. And then finally, somebody mentioned, oh, I saw Elaine, you had your thumbs up. You had a problem with triglycerides?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that can come from having too many carbohydrates in your diet, actually. Even though that's considered a fat type substance, it can come from a lot of too many carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates like flours and sugars, things that are in baked goods. And then somebody mentioned diets high in animal fat, which is what is saturated fat. Mostly all saturated fat comes from animals, although some comes from coconuts and some comes from avocado, but both of those fats are also really very good for us. So I still think those are good inclusions in the diet in moderation. And saturated fat's fine in moderation as well. But this added sugar thing is a real problem for us. And I think we mostly know that our Western diet has way too many added sugars. These are not the sugars that are in your strawberries. These are not the sugars that are in your oranges. These are the sugars that are in your sodas and in your desserts and in the ice cream that you may eat. So when it comes to it, we need to reduce that. And very quickly, I'll just mention that do we have any men in the class here today? It doesn't really look like it. So I'm just going to stick here with, well, we have men in live stream perhaps. So for women, when it comes to added sugars, we should be getting less than 6 teaspoons of added sugar per day in all of those other things we talked about. When it comes to men, it should be less than 9. And when it comes to soda, guess how many teaspoons are in this soda? A 20-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola. Guess how many?
72.
Oh. Well, thank goodness, Elaine, that it isn't quite that high, but it is 16. And 16 versus less than 6 is a great indicator of one thing we can do to make a dramatic change in our diets just by eliminating the soda from our diet, which has no nutritional value whatsoever. So some tips for getting into a heart healthy eating mode. And the first is to control portion size. So I have to ask you this, what is a portion size when it comes to ice cream? Anybody know what a portion size or a serving size would be for ice cream? As mentioned by dietary guidelines.
What, a fourth of a cup or something?
Yeah, it's actually like a half cup. A half cup is a serving of ice cream. So how many of you have gone to an ice cream parlor and gotten a half cup of ice cream? Anybody ever get that? Would you be a little annoyed if you got a half cup of ice cream? Most of us would feel gypped out of that. So we are very trained to eat much larger portion sizes. And so especially when we're eating sweets or very fatty substances, and sweet fats like ice cream are probably the worst. We're very accustomed to eating much more than what we really should. So controlling our portion size by having a little bit of a visual is very helpful. And there are many of these available online. If you type in the search bar, portion sizes, pictures or images, and look at images, you'll get lots of pictures like this that'll show you and give you an eyeball of what a portion size might be. So you can see that a portion size of cheese, which is 1.5 ounces, is equal in size to 2 dominoes. Easy to visualize when you're cutting your piece of cheese. And two tablespoons of peanut butter is a serving. You might imagine that as being the size of a golf ball. So those are the kinds of things that can help us. And of course, a digital scale is very helpful. If you get one of those, you can buy one for 20 bucks, and it has become the most useful thing on my counter. And what you'll find is if you start measuring your food, which sounds like a real drag, if you measure it for a while, you begin to get really acclimated to what that size is, and then you can do away with the scale. The third tip is to really select whole grains. Now, how many of you eat whole grain bread right now? Who eats whole grain bread? Okay. Anybody else? Janet, you do? Okay.
I do.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Good start. Now, how many of you have read the label on the back of your bread to see what percentage or how much whole grain is in that bread?
I have.
Yes, yes.
Great. So it should be the very first ingredient, and it should say 100% whole grain. So it sounds like you're on the right track there, because baking companies give us all sorts of marketing terms that aren't necessarily helpful. And sometimes whole grain breads are really not primarily whole grain. The other thing you might see in breads is a lot of sugar. So if you buy a whole wheat bread, for instance, there are some brands of whole wheat bread that have whole wheat as a third ingredient or further down the list. And they also add something like molasses to the bread to make it brown, to the dough, to make it brown because it looks healthier that way. So be aware of hidden sugars in your breads. We mentioned limiting unhealthy fats, and that would be those saturated fats. We need to keep those at less than 23 milligrams a day, less than 23. Now that's really giving us a lot of leeway if we're not eating a lot of other, we can eat meat, we can eat nice portions of meat, not fatty meat, but lean protein. And we can eat quite a bit of it for less than 23 milligrams. And butter can be eaten selectively, use it as something to eat with vegetables, because there are a lot of good compounds in vegetables that are fat soluble. So there is wisdom in putting butter on your green beans. It helps to bring the nutritional value out of those green beans. And finally, reduce sodium. Oh, on unhealthy fats. How many of you have heard of trans fats? Trans fats. So they've been kind of, not allowed, but they're still out there in foods. So just do make sure that when you're looking at packaged goods, that there are no trans fats, because essentially zero trans fats is what we should be striving for there, unlike the saturated fat. And then finally, reducing sodium to less than 2,300 milligrams or 1 teaspoon per day. So where do we get most of our sodium in our diet? Where does that come from? Anybody want to take a stab? It's not one particular food.
Salt.
It comes from salt. And what do we see? Where does a lot of our salt come from in the foods that we eat?
In our processed foods.
You bet. It's in mostly processed foods, and that's processed foods across the board. So do look at the label and look for the milligrams of sodium on there. And then look for how you can change out with whole foods that you prepare simply. And then you can have the ability to use your teaspoon or up to a teaspoon of salt a little more judiciously to season your food. So you really like, I think it's something like 80% of the sodium that we get in our diet comes from processed foods. It's a lot. So you can do that. All right, so let's talk about power foods. And I want to ask you, when it comes to power foods, what comes to mind? What have you learned that you should include in your diet? What are some of the things?
I add kiwi.
Okay, kiwi, a nice fruit. Mm-hmm.
Broccoli,
Cruciferous vegetables. Mm-hmm.
Nuts.
Nuts. That's a good classification. Yes, a whole classification of nuts is a good food, a good fat, omega-3 fatty acids.
Greens.
Grains, whole grains are a big deal, and especially, you know, the whole grain breads that we talked about, and also things like oatmeal. Oatmeal has a lot of fiber. So our grains give us a lot of healthy vitamin B additions, nutrients, and other vitamins and minerals are in those grains, and fiber. And we should be getting 25 grams of fiber a day. That's not super easy to do unless we're eating whole grains, unless we're eating fruits like berries, maybe pears. They have a lot of fiber in them. And beans have fiber, and so do avocados. So things that have fiber in them. What else?
Lean meats.
Beets?
Lean meat.
Oh, lean
Like-
meat. Yes, lean meats.
Like turkey breast, chicken breast, certain cuts of beef, certain cuts of pork.
Yep, exactly. And eggs would fit into there too as a meat or an animal byproduct or product, whatever you would call it, but eggs fit. Fish fit. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about eggs because there seems to be a lot of contradictory information out there.
Yeah.
Like on some pages it says you can have one a day, and then other pages will say you can have one a day if you're healthy, but if you have heart disease or diabetes, you should only have a couple a week.
Mhm.
So I'm confused to how many eggs I should have.
Yes, well, I'm no doctor, so I have to preface it with this, but I'll say that dietary cholesterol is not the problem that we once thought it was. That is the cholesterol we get from food is not what is the cholesterol that's lining our arteries. It's the cholesterol that our liver makes. So it's the other components that we eat, the sugars and the other fats, the bad fats and things that cause that to be manufactured. And I think it's something like 80 or 90% of the cholesterol in our body comes from that which is made by our liver. So when you eat eggs, it's not like, once again, the eggs get broken down and digested, and they really are kind of a perfect protein food. So I have gone from kind of being conservative on the eggs to not really worrying about it, but that's just me. And that's from what I have learned. And I think that the one a day is moderate, or a couple and then skip a day or something like that. So I don't see the same problem with those.
Thank you.
I'd much rather eat an egg than and have an egg than a bowl of sugary cereal, or even a cereal, any kind that you pour out of the box. I think an egg is pretty good comparison, or pretty good alternative, not comparison. Oh, seems that with this, whenever if I don't click just in the right spot on these slides, it goes to something else. Okay, so here are some things to groups of power foods. So this is what you were looking for. What do I need to include in my diet on a regular basis that's going to get me there? So one is fatty fish, not just any fish, although any fish is good. Fatty fish is best, and it's best because it gives you a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, and they are very good for helping with inflammation and all kinds of other health benefits, even metabolism and so on. So omega-3 fatty acids, we don't get those very easily by other methods. So we have to incorporate foods that we know will give us this. So these fatty fish are an example, and especially these smaller ones, anchovies, sardines, mackerel, even trout. We want fish that are not spending a lot of time in the ocean water because there are a lot of toxins there. There are a lot of, there's heavy metals in the ocean. Tuna accumulates a lot of that because it stays in the ocean longer. So you might have heard that you should limit your tuna intake to a few times a month. And likewise, salmon, you should strive to use wild caught salmon if you can, Alaskan salmon, wild Alaskan salmon. So that's the fish. And omega-3 fatty acids you can also get from avocados and from avocado oil. And what else? Olive oil. Those are some of the other sources of omega-3 fatty acids, but you have to be intentional. And then we've got this whole area of berries. We've got lots of beautiful diversity in color here, which means that we're getting diversity in nutritional value. And these berries pack a punch in terms of that. They have a lot of beta carotenes in, or a lot of antioxidants in them. They have a lot of fiber in them. The winner comes in here with the blackberry, just followed by the raspberry, 8 grams of fiber in a cup. Oh, that is, okay. And then we see other power foods. Somebody talked about nuts, and we've got nuts here because they have omega-3 fatty acids. And so they are very nutritious. They have selenium and other nutrition, other vitamins and minerals, but they are also fattening. So a quarter cup of nuts has about 200 calories. Be aware of that. Be aware that seeds are also a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. How many of you use chia seeds or pumpkin seeds or flax seeds? Anything here that's showing? What do you use, Nelda?
I use chia a lot, and I use the flax seeds in a lot of my meals that I prepare.
Okay, tell us about the flax seed. How do you use that? And do you grind it?
No, I just use it the way it comes. And
Okay.
I can't remember why. Sometimes you can substitute it for some things.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that.
Okay, so in vegan cooking, flax seeds can be used to replace eggs. So 2 tablespoons of flaxseed with some water will get viscous like an egg does, and you can use that in place of eggs for baking. And it is very good if you grind it as well. So when you grind it, you can sprinkle it into smoothies over your cereal, oatmeal. You can put it into your baked goods, muffins, and so on. Chia seeds are little hard black seeds that are even better when they're soaked in something and hydrated. So I'm going to provide you with some recipe for chia pudding that will be a really nice dessert. If you like tapioca, it reminds you of that a little bit because they get these little water-filled seeds that keep us hydrated through the day, and that's nice. I would recommend that these, once you grind or when you have flax seeds, some of these seeds can go rancid in a hurry. So if you keep them in the freezer or the refrigerator, they will last longer. And that's true whether you grind them or not. Now, I've been doing a lot with beans lately. I have a bean salad class coming up later in the day, and beans added to your diet can really go a long way to not only increasing your vitamin levels, it's a great source of protein as well. So vitamin B vitamins, proteins, and a lot of fiber. So you get a three-way punch at least with beans. And yes, come to that class and check out what you can do with beans. I've learned that a lot of learners who come to the platform don't use beans a lot or don't have a lot of different ways to prepare them. So we're trying to expand that horizon. Me either, until I started investigating. So I now have worked more into the diet.
Excuse me, are beans considered a full protein? Because years ago they were considered a half protein.
Yeah, not so much a full protein. So they are protein, and you can supplement with some other things. Quinoa is a complete protein. So you can find ways also to, if you're trying to make it an all-in-one, find some ways to sprinkle some quinoa into your salad as well. So you're right about that. Thanks for bringing that up. And then oatmeal. How many of you eat oatmeal for breakfast in the morning?
I do.
There's lots. Yeah, there's
do.
lots of. What do you use, the steel cut or do you use rolled oats?
I use the steel cut, and I also include the flaxseed meal in my oatmeal.
Fantastic. That's a really nutritious breakfast. And I'm going to send in the email that I send you a recipe for soaked oatmeal. When you soak oatmeal with a little bit of something fermented, like a little bit of yogurt or lemon juice, you will soak away something that is called, that is an anti-nutrient. It's a phytic acid that's on all whole grains. And when you soak it, it breaks that down. Phytic acid can tend to block absorption of other nutrients. It's found on grains, it's found on nuts. So soaking those things ahead, which is a whole other topic, can be really helpful. And
okay.
then,
Is
yeah.
that stuff in bread? Like if you got like a whole grain bread, would you still have that stuff on it that you're talking about?
Acid, I guess it depends on how they process the grain. You know, one would hope that it goes through a process of fermentation a little bit through the baking process, that it breaks that down. So that should be okay. But when you're doing oatmeal, it's not going through, you know, in baking, you have a little fermenting going on. So that when you soak the oatmeal, that's a little bit of what's happening when you add the acid. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Well, you know what? I use my oatmeal for like the overnight oats,
Yes.
and all I'm putting in there is, is the milk
Mhm.
and some fruit or something like that. So would I still need to soak it with something else?
I would just put a tablespoon of yogurt in there if you have it.
Okay.
And that would go that next step. So I will send that recipe so that you have it and you can compare it to what you do. If you want to add a little more,
Okay, thank you.
something else. And then we've got these other vegetables, especially the ones that are orange and red and yellow, because that is an indicator of other kinds of vitamins, nutrients, phytonutrients that we don't ordinarily get, antioxidants like beta carotene and the carotenoids, and those things are in these colorful vegetables. So we definitely want to add color. You know, that guideline about having a colorful plate, that's a great place to start. They say, instead of if you look at your plate and it's all kind of white and gray colored, that you should add some green and add some red and add some yellows and so on. And that gets you much closer to a balanced diet. Just like with your oatmeal, add some colorful berries there. So let me take a look here. 12:37, and we have to 1. So we're doing pretty well. So let me take a sip here. And let's hear from you. What's your typical breakfast? And do you like it? Or are you getting tired of it, or what? Share.
Bean burrito.
Ooh, a bean burrito. That's a good way to get off to with a power punch of fiber in the morning and protein. What do you put on your burrito?
It's whatever it comes with. I zap it in the microwave.
Okay, you get one that's already made. All righty.
Yeah, it's not bad in fat or anything. And it's filling, and it's good when you can't function in the morning.
Yeah, gotcha. You need something simple. Understood.
I made a frittata the other day, and it had apples in it and bacon. And the only thing is that you had to get a pie crust, you know, and that's the only thing I didn't like. And I had some left over because I had made too much of it. And so I went ahead and put it in little muffin things. So that did not have the pastry, and it was still delicious. Very, very delicious. I really liked it.
You know what, Nelda, you just, I think, put your finger on something that's really important. There are a lot of great quiche recipes out there, a lot of recipes that call for crust that you don't need a crust for. So
Exactly.
when you mentioned using apples, and what was the other ingredient?
Bacon.
Bacon.
Bacon and apples.
I was thinking you could make that easily in some kind of an omelet. There's no reason why you couldn't. The frittata, like you said, my frittata is just sauteing whatever it is that I want in my omelet, and then pouring, or in my frittata, and then pouring the eggs over top and putting the whole thing in the oven for about 10 minutes. And I've got this wonderful, what you're just talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. And so I realized that I really did not need the pastry. You know, if I could make that pastry out of almond flour or something else, you know, I might try it. But I liked it without it too.
Without it, yeah. Good. And then this is the same idea. So I'm going to, you mentioned doing smaller versions. So I'm going to send you this baked omelet muffin idea too. So if you are making your foods for meals earlier in the week, if you do something on Sunday, you can always make these muffins. They stay well in the refrigerator and reheat. And I even did try them in the freezer. Now, I didn't have them in for a lengthy amount of time, so I don't know how long, but if you wrap them really well, no reason why they wouldn't reheat pretty nicely. And you can add all sorts of vegetables. I think that's probably one of the tips for your eggs in the morning. So you can do with one egg. I can do with less eggs if I'm punching up the amount of vegetables that I'm using in my omelet or my frittata. So think about how you can add lots of vegetables. And then there's this idea, okay, how many of you are totally repelled by the idea of eating sardines for breakfast?
Yes.
Yes. Sherry even came on camera to say, no way. And Elaine said, no, I'm not doing that. Well, then try it for lunch. Now, I just had this for breakfast this morning, and I feel pretty good about having eaten this. This is whole grain bread and then avocado. So we've got a lot of fiber here and a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. I just smashed the avocado with a little bit of lime and then laid these sardines on top with some little red pepper flakes. And it's delicious. So I can understand not eating it for breakfast. And if you want to just try to work sardines into your diet, try it for lunch, try it as a snack, and try it with this recipe, because this recipe gives it a little different flavor. You can see that it's a sherried sardine toast, and you are marinating these sardines that are in olive oil in a little bit of parsley, sherry vinegar, a little bit of lemon and pepper, so that you get a little less fishy flavor with those sardines, or a little additional different kinds of tastes in there to make them maybe more palatable if you don't like a strong fish. But
tried it twice and they are good.
thank you, Nelda. So you did.
Yep.
Okay. Is that because you were in here before?
Yes.
I thought so. So here's the soaked oatmeal, and I will give you that recipe. I want to see where I am here. I always run out of time to get to the dinners. This one we've discussed pretty well. I'll just mention that I'm also putting on here on the email I send you this product. So there is one product here that I like. I started using it fairly recently. It's called Keto Collagen. I decided I needed to start taking a collagen supplement. And this comes in flavors. It's grass-fed beef. It comes in flavors, and this one is a cinnamon toast flavor. So I just use maybe a quarter of a scoop. A scoop is a serving. I use a quarter of a scoop and use it to sweeten my oatmeal instead of using sugar or maple syrup, although I have those out here as choices. And I also have used stevia and milk substitutes. So oat milk goes nicely with oatmeal, and flaxseed and some nuts. So you can really make your breakfast powerful. And I bet many of you do that. Does anybody else have things to add? I have blueberries on here too. Does this look a little like your breakfast sometimes?
I use the flaxseed meal and a little cinnamon and a teaspoon of peanut butter. And it's very filling.
That would be delicious. And
some almonds, some slivered almonds.
Slivered almonds would be a good replacement for those pecans. And I don't know if you knew this or not, Aletha, but cinnamon can have a positive effect on blood sugar. Did you know?
Yeah, that's why I'm using it.
Okay, so here we go. Cinnamon is a great addition. And then for lunch, power pack with veggies and color. And there are some great ways to do that. If you're a meat person, you can look over here at the white bean, sage, and sausage soup. This can make a nice way to include some meat, but not a lot. You can pair it up with some of these other things if you just eat a cup of it, or you can have a whole meal in a bowl here. And that is pretty easy to put together. You can use hot Italian sausage links, or you could use a chicken sausage, whatever you prefer. And it's got some onion and fennel, a little bit of red pepper to spice it up if you like spice. If you don't, leave it out. The 20 ounces of hot Italian sausage, you could probably even reduce further if you didn't want that much in it. And then this is flavored with a lot of garlic, some fresh sage, just a little bit of tomato paste. And how do you save your tomato paste when you only use a tablespoon out of the can? Anybody have a trick for that? Or do you just throw it away? Put it in the refrigerator and then throw it away. You can measure it out by tablespoons and freeze it on a piece of wax paper or parchment paper. And then once it's frozen, you can bag it up in your freezer bag and put it back in the freezer so that you have one tablespoon servings for later things. So that's what's included in that recipe, and be very flavorful, served with some whole grain bread on the side. How many of you eat, who eats kale salad right now? Anybody eat kale salad? Anybody say kale is, yeah, you eat some kale? Sherry, tell us about your kale salad. Tell us how you make it.
Well, I don't. I buy it in the bag at the store.
Oh, okay.
Just dump it in.
They have some great salad bags, right? Yeah.
Yes. I don't use their dressings or anything, but I think the kale comes with like these little nuts and stuff. And usually I'll put some other whatever I have in the refrigerator, like tomatoes and stuff in it if I want it. And I don't use their dressings or anything.
Okay.
So it's low fat and very good.
Very nice. Those are some nice packages. Elaine, you also said that you make it?
I do the same thing as Sherry. I buy the pre-shredded kale. I might mention I also make kale chips, which I really like to snack on.
Yes, tell us how you make them, because I think that's a
Oh,
great.
I just tear up the kale, and then I put the olive oil on my hands and, you know, just stir it all up with my fingers and then put it in the oven.
Delicious. And do you salt it a little bit then?
Yes, I do put a little salt on.
Yeah, delicious. And do you bake them until they're brown, or how do you know when they're finished?
No, and I put the oven on pretty low, and I just wait until they look pretty dry,
Okay.
not necessarily brown.
So you're drying them as opposed to really baking them or even roasting?
Well, I'm going to call it baking, but I don't wait until they're really brown because my husband doesn't like them that way.
Okay. But green and crispy.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Thanks for sharing that recipe. And I'll share this Deb's kale salad with you. It's got a nice slice. This is not me, by the way. This is another Deb's recipe, so I won't take credit for it. But if you have not ever made your own kale salad from scratch, you might want to take a look at this recipe. It has basic ingredients in it, but the trick is to massage your kale. Have you ever heard of massaging your kale? So here's what you do. When you get kale, and the curly green kale is the toughest of all. You know, that's one of the reasons why people tend to be shy away from kale. It's just really chewy and fibrous and not very soft. So you need to break that down a little bit. And you can take the curly kale, or you can get some of these other types like lacinato, which is much less curly and tough, fibrous. So you can cut those then into bite-sized pieces and then massage it by putting a little bit of salt in the bowl after you've washed the kale, a little bit of salt, and getting in there with your hands and really massaging it until it turns dark green. And when you know it's about finished, when it feels much more flexible and your bowl is probably reduced by half, because it goes from being fluffy down to being more soft and dark green and more wet. So not wet per se, but more relaxed anyway. And the rest of the salad is radishes, some dried cranberries or cherries, an apple, and then goat cheese, I think really sets it off. And the dressing is very easy. Olive oil, apple cider vinegar, Dijon mustard, a little bit of maple syrup, and salt and pepper. And this will keep in the refrigerator for a couple of days as well. So I liked it left over. It just marinated a little bit more, and very tasty. And I will include this. There's not a lot of a recipe here. This is more of an idea. So we talk about using whole grain. You can use sprouted grain bread here with an avocado spread on one side and a hummus spread on the other side. So you've got lots of protein, lots of fiber in this whole meal. And then any kind of veggie that you might like included in here. So you can see peppers and cucumbers and carrots and things, and makes a nice hearty sandwich. Does anybody eat veggie sandwiches? One of the things that I think flavors this up is a little bit of sharp cheese if you want more flavor, or you can put even olives in here to get a little more tang. So it's a sandwich that can be modified with the vegetables of the season, which I like a lot. So I never have the same sandwich twice, essentially. So here are some dinners that I like to share with you. This baked pesto chicken uses a lean chicken breast, and this is easy to do. You can make this up for dinner tonight, and then you can use extra chicken breasts and another baking dish and make another one up, put it in the freezer, and it's ready to go when you want to make it on another evening. So all you need are canned tomatoes. You can use as much as you want. This called for a can of tomatoes. Sometimes I put more in because I like that. And then the chicken breast is laid on top of the tomatoes with some salt and pepper. And then a layer of, there's pesto under there. So I happen to make my own pesto from the basil I have in the garden. You can use the jarred pesto. Spread it liberally on the chicken breast, and then top it with a combination of mozzarella and Parmesan or any of the Italian cheeses that you really like, and bake it. And it bakes at 350 until the chicken breast is 165 degrees as measured by an instant read thermometer. Couldn't get any easier than this. Thoughts about that? Or has anybody ever made anything quite like this? I thought this was a good find. It was super easy. I made it last week, and then I made another pan of it because I'm getting company later in the week and I don't have really time to spend in the kitchen, and I'll be able to get that out and have it in no time for dinner.
A quick question for you, since you're using pasta, do you ever use the chickpea flour pasta or rice? What's your opinion on that stuff? I've tried it and it doesn't taste too badly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it doesn't taste badly, and I like it. I like the rice pasta, especially if I can find one that's organic. I do have a tendency to prefer that. I think with rice pasta, you must be watchful of that and make sure you don't overcook it. It can easily lose its al dente and kind of fall apart. So cook it al dente and add it to your dishes. This actually should be like a whole wheat pasta. So I would suggest a whole grain here, or a whole grain of some sort. You said quinoa pasta? Is that what you said? Chickpea pasta.
Chickpea, yeah, chickpea. And there's also, I've tried red lentil pasta, and they both taste okay. One gets a little mushier than the other one, I noticed, but I mean, I think it's a good alternative, although it seems like the carbs are still pretty high.
Yeah, well, those things would be high in carbs. And I would suggest this one other thing that you do, because I've been experimenting and looking at those pastas as well. Some of them, if you look on the back of the package, you will find that they have other ingredients in them. So I found one that was dark green, and it was a seaweed pasta. And I thought, that's really interesting. What's in that? And I looked on the back of the package, and the first ingredients was semolina wheat. So it has seaweed in it, but it's still mostly a wheat product. So if you're gluten intolerant or you're trying to get rid of those carbs, obviously seaweed doesn't have a lot of carbs in it. So that they're using other ingredients in there to get the consistency. Seaweed isn't going to really make a pasta per se. So we just have to be careful with what's on those labels. I have chickpea pasta on my shelf right now. I'm trying to remember if I've used it before. I'll give it another go and take notice of that. So thanks for bringing that up. I do like the brown rice pastas pretty much the most at this point. So this is a gorgonzola fettuccine with asparagus and walnuts. And I won't go into the detail of the recipe, but here's what makes it healthy in my opinion, and also a little bit indulgent. It is using the whole grain pasta, which you cook as you normally would, and then making a light cream sauce that has a little bit of cream cheese in it, just a few ounces. And you're using that in combination with the pasta water, and you're making a sauce. And by itself, it wouldn't be all that flavorful. But what you're doing is topping it with some gorgonzola at the end. And if you like gorgonzola cheese, you know that gorgonzola cheese is very power packed. You don't need a lot of gorgonzola to get the flavor. So when you're sprinkling that on top and you're adding the walnuts and the cooked spinach in there, you have a very nice, flavorful pasta that I think tastes kind of decadent because it is creamy, but it's not super high calorie, super high fat. You can use the 1/3 less fat cream cheese And it's a nice pasta dish there, and with lots of
Can you
fiber. Mhm.
can you use the fat-free cream cheese?
You can, but I'm not sure that the trade-off is nutritionally better. Sometimes the things that they put into fat-free products are less
Yeah.
helpful than actually having a little bit of saturated fat. Now you might try using, there's a product out now, it's a yogurt cream cheese, a Greek yogurt cream cheese that has, it has significantly less fat in it and more protein than regular cream cheese. I can't remember the statistic. I think it was 60 calories versus 90, and I can't remember the fat grams exactly, but that might be another alternative, a Greek yogurt cream cheese, if you can find it. And then lastly, you can make these salmon foil packets with vegetables. And I just made this the other night. So you buy your Atlantic salmon. It was on sale at Whole Foods for $10.99 a pound, but it was on sale and I gave myself a treat. I like to use real butter on my salmon. I think it brings out the flavor so well. It's a good use of butter. And I put dill on my salmon, maybe a little bit of lemon. And then I popped in some tomatoes and some asparagus, just like this shows, but you could use any seasonal vegetable that you want. Of course, it's going to flavor with the fish juices if you like that. If you don't, make those separately. And again, you're just folding this packet up tightly. I put it in the oven at 350, and usually my fish is done within 15 minutes. And I try to check it periodically because I like my fish a little on the red side inside, as opposed to being too pink and too flaky and hard. I think that's just my taste, but you can eat it a little bit pink. Okay, and so that brings us to the end of our class. I guess my chia seed pudding was in my healthy eating on a budget class. So we talked about quite a few things, food-related factors, tips, power foods. Do you feel like you have a grasp on what those power foods are now and what you need to work into the diet? So you can be pretty, you can examine recipes through that lens now. And what questions, final thoughts do you have about what we talked about today? What is your favorite takeaway?
I like the what you talked about, the oatmeal, putting yogurt in it, to make it healthier. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look for that recipe or that link to show you how to soak that. And thanks for that. Who else said something?
I like the recipes. I mean, again, we eat pretty healthy, not 100%. And I do like my ice cream, but I like the variety recipes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I hope that you will enjoy these and give them a try. And I want to invite you also to send your favorite recipes to me. I think I might have mentioned, well, I'm gathering this information because I'd like to get more of you involved in sharing your recipe ideas. I think we can do that nicely on this forum here. I know I have some recipes, but I know there's good recipes in your files and in your cookbooks. So do share them at this debtheguide@getsetup.io. And right now we're looking for, even your favorite dishes or recipes that your mom used to make, because we're coming up on Mother's Day. So anything is good to send my way, including pictures of recipes that you may have made or anything you tried here. You snap a picture and send it my way. I think that's really fun. And we share that information then. So thanks a lot for coming today. And I really am glad that those of you who are new came today, as well as my regulars. I am doing bean salads later and quinoa later today. Those I'm doing from my kitchen. I'll send those notes out. You can invite a friend to this class if you would like. You can give me feedback on this class and anything else that you want to give feedback on. You can view our schedule from there and book your next class, and I'll send you some suggested classes. When you sign up for your next class, don't forget about checking in with some friends and seeing if they'd like to join you. And if you'd like to be more involved. Now, this is something that I wanted to talk with you about. So if anybody else would like to talk about hosting an interest group or suggesting a new class, or even sharing your organization with us, like if you know an area agency on aging or a YMCA that might be interested, let us know and help it get set up. And that's where you can also get this recording. So that's all for today. And I'll just be here if you would like help registering for your next class, or if I can answer any other questions about what we talked about in class today.
Thank you so much. It's a great class.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you did. Are you sticking around, Nelda, for a second? Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Yes, thank you all. And yeah, thanks for the feedback.
I'll see you this evening around 5.
Oh, Garnetta, you're coming to the quinoa class.
Yeah, I didn't see the other class. And what time is that? The other class start?
Oh, the bean salad class is at 3.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll see if they have any room.
Oh, I bet there's room. I bet there's room. We'll see if I'll look for you.
Okay. Take care.
Deb, excuse me, Deb.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, we have a question in the chat section from Ellen.
Okay.
So she says that she had a conflict today for your salad class. So do you have it again?
Yes, we will have it again. It might skip a week, but it'll be coming up again. Probably in 2 weeks. Let's just see. Yeah, we'll leave that on for a little while. That one seems like it's got some interest. So yeah. Okay.
All right, then. See you in the next class.
All right. Thanks, Joe. See you later.
Bye-bye.
So Nelda, a long time ago, I wrote down your name. I think it was because you talked about really being interested in low carb food, and you were also interested in Mexican food, or you have that background. Mm-hmm. You have that in your I guess that's in your family background. Although now I see that you don't have your dash name, you have, or your hyphenated name. Do you have Martinez in your name?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know whether you had any recipes, or if you had any interest in doing anything in combination with me, either on low carb kind of things or Mexican things. You wouldn't have to host an interest group or anything, but just to give you an idea, like there's Pam. Pamela's going to actually go the whole 9 yards and do a class and demonstrate making scones from her kitchen. So that's something that can be done. And then there's Judy, who is going to, who's given me some dessert recipes that she really loves. And we're going to have a session and talk, and I'm going to make at least one of those recipes. And I don't know if we'll do it in the kitchen or if I'll just make them and talk about them, but she's going to come on and just talk us through her recipes and the tips for making some of those recipes. And so there's that, just coming on and talking about the recipes or the finds that you have. And I just wanted to kind of touch base to see whether that held any interest for you or sparked anything.
I'd have to think about it. Because of the low carb, it's hard, Mexican food is very high in carbs, most of it,
Yeah.
So I know that I do make the quinoa, is it? Or what was it? Yeah, I do make the brown rice Spanish, and it's worked out pretty good. And I think I've tried the quinoa also, but it's not as good as, the brown rice, as the Mexican rice,
Yes. Well, let me know tell me this, is there a possibility, do you have Mexican recipes? Forget about the low carb for a moment.
Right.
but Mexican recipes that you know and have grown up with, or you know, that you would want to share, because it would be nice to have that too.
Mhm.
Because people are all over the place with what they want to learn. Not everybody really cares about the low carb stuff. So, but they'd be interested in Mexican. So you can think.
Let me think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no pressure to say anything, but that gets set up. Get Deb the guide. It gets set up. Email us. Feel free to reach out to me with any ideas or suggestions at any time, or if you'd like to move forward in that direction with either of those topics or anything else. And we can make it a micro thing. It doesn't have to be all things Mexican. It can be one or two dishes, something like that. So we're just looking for things that might be interesting to learners. And I think it's really great when people who have things in their family cookbooks can come to the table with those, literally come to the table, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. And yeah, I'll think about it.
Okay, Nelda.
Okay.
Thanks for coming to my classes.
Thank you. You're one of my faves. That's why I try to see all your classes. And I think some of them I've been maybe 2 or 3 times at, you know, learning something.
I'm really glad. And thanks for coming back to those sometimes more than once. I see sometimes people that are doing that and I think, oh, I need to have some new content, but it takes a while to get things together. So it takes a while to create these classes. So I can't always change them all up, but we're working on that. So
okay. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.